Welcome to your guide to interpreting your coalition's CCIM4C capacity survey results. In this video, you will learn how to read and understand the tables in your capacity survey results report. It may be helpful to have your report with you as you watch this video so you can take note of certain results that are particularly meaningful for your coalition. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Alex Wainwright, and I'm a senior studying business administration at Ohio University's Honors Tutorial College. As an undergraduate research scholar on the Partnership for Community-Based Prevention at Ohio University's Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs, I helped prepare the reports that we are about to go through together. One of the goals of the Community Collective Impact Model for Change, or CCIM4C, was to increase the ability or capacity of local groups to bring prevention, treatment, and recovery supports together. To achieve this goal, it's important for CCIM4C coalitions to understand their strengths and needs so they can receive specific technical assistance and move forward on the path of reducing opioid deaths and increasing access to treatment, including medication-assisted treatment, also known as MAT. To understand each coalition's strengths and weaknesses, the CCIM4C leadership team sent a survey to every coalition during the first year of the CCIM4C initiative in December of 2017. After the initiative ended, the leadership team sent a follow-up survey in July of 2019 to identify changes in each coalition's capacity. It's important for you to know how to interpret the results of this survey, not only to gain a better understanding of your coalition's capacity to address substance abuse, but to build analytical skills that apply to a wide variety of public health issues. Before diving into interpreting specific results, I will provide a brief overview of how the results are organized. The CCIM4C leadership team divided the survey questions into 6 distinct categories based on the topics they address. The first category is coalition membership, which includes questions that aim to measure the perceived representation of various community sectors, such as local health departments and law enforcement agencies, within your coalition. The second category is mobilization, which includes questions that aim to measure the perceived ability of your coalition to communicate and collaborate for a common goal and shared progress measures. The third category is community trauma, which includes questions that aim to measure the perceived ability of your coalition to identify and implement strategies that address structural drivers of trauma in your community's economic, physical, and social-cultural environments. The fourth category is Strategic Prevention Framework, or SPIF, which includes questions that aim to measure your coalition's perceived familiarity with and ability to effectively implement the SPIF. The fifth category is Collective Impact, which includes questions that aim to measure the perceived ability of your coalition to effectively influence and engage your community with the CCIM4C initiative. Finally, the sixth category is factors, which includes questions that aim to measure the perceived impact level of certain demographic, environmental, or social-cultural factors that may have had an impact on opioid prevention, treatment, and recovery activities in your community between July of 2016 and July of 2018. Each category is presented in its own table, and we will now go through how to read and understand each table's format by looking at examples from a few unnamed coalitions. The first table shows your coalition's responses to survey questions related to coalition membership. The first column in this table, Sector, lists all of the potential community sectors that may be represented in your coalition. The second column, N, represents the number of individuals within your coalition who answered this set of questions, regardless of whether their answer was yes or no. The third column, Count, represents the number of survey takers in your coalition who agreed that the corresponding community sector was represented in your coalition. The fourth column, Percent, indicates the percentage of survey takers in your coalition who agreed that the corresponding community sector was represented in your coalition. The higher the value in the percent column, the more likely it is that the corresponding community sector is represented in your coalition, so you may want to seek out more representation of community sectors with low corresponding percent values. For example, No one from the coalition shown on your screen reported representation from institutes of higher education, so it may be strategic for this coalition to seek out additional members from this sector. However, it's important to note that a high percent value doesn't necessarily mean that a community sector is represented in your coalition. Because these questions only asked survey takers if they believed that these sectors were represented in their coalition, rather than which sector they themselves represented, a percent value anywhere between 0 and 100% indicates some level of disagreement among your members of your coalition. For example, 50% of the members of the coalition shown on your screen reported that mental health professionals or organizations were represented in their coalition. This may appear to be a strength at first, but it also means that 50% of the members of this coalition believed that mental health professionals and organizations were not represented in their coalition. Half of the coalition disagrees with the other half. Discrepancies such as this should be addressed within your coalition to prevent future misunderstandings and disagreements. The second, third, and fourth tables are formatted similarly, so I will save time by only guiding you through the second table, Mobilization. Then you can use the same skills to interpret the results for the Community Trauma and SPIF tables. The first two columns in each of these tables are the same as the first two columns in the coalition membership table. Each answer choice, including strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, and strongly agree, is listed at the top of each table and corresponds to two columns, count and percent. For each answer choice, count represents the number of survey takers who selected that choice, and percent represents the percentage of survey takers who selected that choice out of the total number of survey takers who answered the corresponding question. For each table, these results can help you identify your coalition's strengths and weaknesses within the category and, more specifically, within the distinct subcategories. For each survey item, look to the 5% columns to see whether your coalition generally agrees or disagrees with the statement. For example, all of the survey takers in the coalition shown on your screen reported that they agreed or strongly agreed that members of their coalition think it's important to work with a diverse set of stakeholders to coordinate a set of activities using a plan of action. This coalition can conclude that this aspect of collaboration is one of its strengths. On the other hand, more than a third of this same coalition reported that they disagreed that the coalition's members regularly make minor adjustments to their initiative to improve success. So it may be beneficial for this coalition to explore how to improve this aspect of its performance management and evaluation process. Moreover, 50% of this coalition's members agreed with the same statement, so this coalition may consider discussing this issue within their group and identifying potential reasons why some members agree and some do not. You can use these same guidelines to analyze your results for community trauma and SPIF. So now we'll move on to collective impact. This table is formatted differently than the three we just went over because we asked survey takers to rank their agreement with each survey item from 0, meaning not at all, to 10, meaning completely. High values in the columns labeled median, mode, and mean indicate that your coalition believes that the corresponding survey item is one of its strengths, and low values indicate that the survey item is one of your weaknesses. The last column, SD, displays the standard deviation of all of your coalition's answers, which demonstrates the extent to which members of your coalition agree or disagree with one another regarding each survey item. A high standard deviation means that members of your coalition disagreed with each other regarding the corresponding survey item, and a low standard deviation indicates a consensus among members of your coalition. Looking at the table shown on your screen, you can see that this coalition's median, mode, and mean were relatively high regarding the statement that the leadership has relationships with diverse groups that can help the CCIM4C initiative. At first glance, you may assume that this aspect of community participation is one of this coalition's strengths. But when you look at the corresponding standard deviation value, you'll notice that it's also pretty high. So even though most of the members of this coalition agreed with this statement, a few members disagreed, so it may be beneficial for this coalition to discuss and identify possible reasons behind its members' varying perceptions of community participation. The final table shows your coalition's responses to survey items related to certain demographic, environmental, or social-cultural factors that may have had an impact on opioid prevention, treatment, and recovery activities in your community. Each answer choice, including no impact, low impact, moderate impact, and high impact, is listed at the top of the table and corresponds to 2 columns, count and percent. For each survey item, look to the 4% columns to determine how much your coalition believes each factor impacted opioid prevention and recovery activities. For example, you can see on your screen that 100% of the survey takers in this coalition believed that easy access to substances for adults had a moderate or high impact in their community. So this coalition may want to think about ways they can reduce access to substances to prevent opioid abuse. But as you can see, members of this same coalition widely disagreed regarding the impact level of limited legal policies or enforcement. So this coalition should probably discuss how this factor impacts its activities so they can agree upon which factors to focus on moving forward. This concludes our walkthrough of the Coalition Capacity Survey Results Report. We hope that you find this guide useful as you learn from your coalition survey results and identify your coalition's strengths and weaknesses so you can grow stronger moving forward. We also hope that this guide has helped you build your analytical skills that you can apply to a wide variety of substance abuse and public health issues beyond the scope of opioid use disorder and the CCIM4C initiative.